to the life situations in a different way. And so I have called for these phenomenal men who will have great input to what is going on. First, before we can do anything, we always have to find out what the problems are, what the issues are, what are the contributing factors to what the things that we're facing today. So you can never solve a problem or you can never have a resolution until you actually know what it is you're fighting. And so when we talk about racism, there's a greater issue at hand further than somebody just don't like anybody, because racism is tied to power, it's tied to money, it's tied to progression, it's tied to moving forward. So we have to get to the root of why we can't move forward, why we can't progress, why we still experiencing poverty in a way that we should not be experiencing, why our community still suffering, before we can actually deal with the fact that the white community is not getting along with the black community. It's way deeper than that. And so God has established a government called religion, and religion plays a key part in everything that goes on in the world. So my purpose for bringing these men here today was to let's look at this system to see why is it so broken, why is it so ineffective, and why are we not being or why are we not coming together to learn how to commune with one another and provide solutions that our people can benefit from? So this is why we call it the live panel today. And unfortunately, when you have these discussions, these are discussions that people don't want to talk about. But I believe in this season there are a people who are raising up and they are doing things different. Now, we've been seeing marches for years. We've been hearing about civil rights movements. We've been hearing about, you know, our great predecessors who have gone before us and they protested, they marched, they've done all kinds of things. But yet there's still no change. So now we need to look at things differently and we need to operate differently. We need to be strategic and we need to put things in place that will become action steps for us so that we can begin to see change. Okay? A lot said, right? So you have time. Everybody who is viewing us live stream, please go ahead and invite your friends, invite your followers. For those of you all who are here with us, if you have Periscope, hop on Periscope. You are free to invite, you know, the people who follow you on Periscope or any form of social media and tell them you want to be a part of this discussion. And I never despise small beginners because it's always small beginners who lead great movements. So you are here, that means that you've been chosen to be a part of something great, and the information that you're going to receive today is going to leave you with two things. Either you're going to decide to stay the same, or you're going to start to think and say, you know what, I need to do something different so that I can see change. So without further ado, of course you know we are live streaming www.elifemedia.net. You will not be able to call in tonight because we are actually outside of the studio. For those of you who are here with us, I admonish you to take out your paper, take out your pen. This is going to be a conversation maybe different than what you're used to hearing. We are not interested in quoting a whole lot of scriptures and getting people saved. We are interested in changing our community. So we're going to be thinking outside of the box today. We're going to be thinking about things that we can do in our community to make a difference. Different governmental systems that it will be beneficial for us to partner with so that we can bring our African American community into a place of poverty, into a place of progression instead of consistent oppression. So you're going to have questions when you hear things tonight. I admonish you to write them down so that you can get these questions answered because we'll have Q&A throughout the night. So before we get started, there are two videos that I want to play for you all. And I want you to listen and listen attentively. Write down your questions, write down your comments because they should provoke something within you. So that's how we're going to get started. Once we listen to these two videos, then we'll move forward with our panel and we'll move forward with identifying different issues that are taking place that are beneath the surface of racism and move towards resolution. Is that okay?
That's okay.
All right, so the first video is a video that I found from Louis Farrakhan.
What was the payoff for? That she should be quiet, not bring this before a court of law, not even talk about it. Because if it came before a court of law, then depositions would have to be taken, subpoenas to all of the statements that were made by Mr. Van Dyke and all the officers, the watch commander, people that got the story and covered it and lied, saying that the brother lunged at them when the video clearly shows him walking across the white line away from the police. Now here's what troubles me, Cliff. The kind of way that black men are being shot down, not only in Chicago, but in America, tells me that there is a culture of violence against us that is now systemic, because it's happening everywhere. In San Francisco, a young black brother, 26, was shot 25 times, and he was walking away from the police, and the police went in front of him to block his walk, and the firing started. 25 shots. See, this is hate crime, because you don't shoot an animal when you go out to hunt 25 times and tear the food that you're going to eat. So this is hatred of us. Now, having said that, this hush money, I call it, that this would never see the light of day in a court of law, because every one of them are liars, deceivers. So when they would get exposed, their testimony as a group of liars. See, this is why it is systemic. What the hell is the union for? The union is the defense counsel for the police. The union does not wish to see discipline to a policeman that has killed somebody in wicked error. So now when you talk about getting rid of stuff, you gotta go all the way to the top, clean it all the way to the bottom. Otherwise, black people have no hope in American jurisprudence.
That was the first video. The second video that I am going to share with you is actually a video that was created by my brother, Dana Stevens, who's joining us by Skype.
Hey friends, well, let me be honest, probably before this video is over, some of you will consider me as an enemy. But I wanted to share a couple minutes about my thoughts, not only on the tragedies that we have been experiencing over these past months, and especially these last couple of days with the shootings of our black men,
midwives, and he instructed them that when a Hebrew boy was born, kill him. Well, these midwives did not follow, and the Hebrew slaves continued to grow. Eventually, the Pharaoh became so hatred towards those Hebrew slaves that he made a decree. He put out an order that male baby boy Hebrew slaves were to be killed by casting them into the Nile River. Let's look at America. We brought blacks into this country as slaves. We never intended them to be anything other than a slave.
Wow. You have to take a deep breath after listening to that, right? I thought what was so interesting about that is that you hear it coming from someone of the Caucasian ethnicity group. So if you won't admit that racism is alive and it's well active, and there is a systematic problem, then I don't know what to say to you. As we've been discussing, we started off in June dealing with the African American man. That whole month, we dealt with issues that the African American male is subject to. And this is how these open forum panels started, because of the need to discuss issues that are oppressing our African American males. And then things shifted a little bit when we started seeing the blatant racism or the war between the abuse of power, which is a form of racism, between our white police officers against our African American males. Now, we know that this has been going on since the foundation of the world. But what is different now is that we can actually see it in real time. I was having this discussion with a person earlier this week. Because of my age, 44 years old, I have not seen racism like some people have experienced it. And I'm a female. So I have not experienced racism on a level that our African American males have experienced it, especially our older generations. There's a difference because the baby boomers, they experienced it more than the millennials will probably ever experience, okay? At the point of the millennials, it's more aggressive, I would say, because of the type of people that they're dealing with. You have to look at the different age and culture differences. The baby boomers tolerated a lot more things than the millennials. They don't care. They're going to fight back. They are going to demand justice, where our older generations kind of just dealt with things and said that we will sing our spirituals and we'll trust God to deliver us. Well, unfortunately, that hasn't happened because we're still dealing with it. And so we have to begin to look at this thing. And I always say that there is first of all, religion operates as a democracy. That means that it's operating from a standpoint that we rule and reign over our congregation, as opposed to becoming the servant to our community. Our churches are expecting the community to serve it, where you bring all of your tithes, you bring all of your offerings, you spend all your time there, but then we give you nothing in return but a prayer and send you on your way. Things have to change. It has to start somewhere. There are several governmental entities that God set up, and religion is one of them. Religion plays a major role in everything that goes on in the earth today. Why? Because God is supposed to be the center of it all. Now, we respect that people have different beliefs as to who their God is. I am not here to try to persuade you that it's Jesus Christ, that it's Buddha, that it's Muhammad. That is not my place, because at this point, ain't none of them working. If you look at the way the world is moving today. So we can't deny that there is a higher power. We cannot deny that there is a God. So there is something wrong with us, and there is something wrong with the way that we're operating. There's something wrong with the way our system is, in that we are not seeing the manifestation of God's hand in the earth the way that we're supposed to see it. There is no way on the face of this earth that we should be living under the oppression of a judicial system that gives a person the absolute right to kill a person cold-blooded and be able to say, we're not going to do anything to them. Or, well, they refuse to step down. Why do they have a choice in stepping down? Why are they not being killed or going through the death penalty like somebody who is innocent of a crime, and then yet they get the death penalty? There is an imbalance. There is something wrong. So today, I want us to have this open discussion about and get into the root of what the problem is and why is the system of religion so ineffective. Now, after we deal with those issues and identify why we are so ineffective, then we have to come up with real solutions. And how can we do things different? How can we move forward to bring healing? Because just Dana said 3 things that were very key to me. He talked about the bloodshed. This is just my opinion. For those of you that are watching via the internet, you're listening to this, or you will go back and listen to it. Dr. ZaMiya is saying, I do not believe that that shooting in Dallas was originated by just somebody angry. What I believe is that it is a diversion from the government to create another smoke screen to move us away from what's really going on with our African American men. And they use a black face to justify it. Those are my personal beliefs. I believe that this was set up by the government. Because now people are moving away from Black Lives Matter to Blue Lives Matter. Now, I don't wish death upon nobody. I don't care what the color of your skin is. I have white people in my family, so I am not prejudiced at all. I love my brother-in-law. I love my nieces and my nephews to no ends. So I don't think anybody should be killed regardless of the color of your skin. But when we live in a system and in a world where the government can create issues that take us away from the issues that really matter, because what's happening with the Black Lives Matter and all of the other protests that are going forth and our younger generation is that they're demanding justice. And they are forcing these conversations to take place that people can no longer just ignore and sweep under the carpet. You have to give an answer. So what's the best way not to answer? To create a diversion. And so nobody's talking about the deaths of these African American no more, African American men no more. Now all we're talking about is the police. So let's open up this conversation. I want to know, how do you feel about the video that our Caucasian brother put out, letting you know that, yeah, you are being treated as slaves. And I just want to go down the line. And then we'll get to you, Dana, okay? So let me put it right here so you can see the panel.
Wow. So we first have to come to the reality that there is something very sinister and demonic on the planet that exists in the universe that is eternal the same way. And if you can embrace that there is something sinister and primal and evil, then you must believe that there has something that exists that is inherently good and above that which is evil. So let me say that. And however you wrestle with that, because we wrestle with that on a daily basis, why do bad things happen to good people? That is the argument for most scholars and theologians called the study of theodicy, right? But we don't have enough time to get into that. However, when we talk about a systemic, dysfunctional, functionalized system that has pathologically been put in place since the colonialized rape of this country by folk who said they discovered something when people were already here. It was a move set up to establish a power structure. That power structure and that system gave birth to our current economic, philosophical, ideological belief system of capitalism, right? Where there is a sweat equity that needs to be put in place so others could benefit from it. In order for that system to work, you must have a lower class or a caste system. So then you have to figure out how does that go. So I was reading a particular essay by a gentleman who stated that in the first round of the move of colonizing this particular country, we had white indentured servants who came over. They said that they would serve for a period of time for the wealthier establishments as they came over, their families, in order to pay for the passage to get here. There then became about this movement of slavery and bringing in free work labor. We have a free workforce. So that free workforce came over here and began to take up most of that labor work. And so those who were benefiting from it were receiving 100% dividend, meaning that they didn't have to pay anything out or owe anything to anybody. So these two classes begin to blend. You had the lower poor white individuals and the black slaves who were actually sharing quarters on some of the particular labor institutions. And they begin to understand that at some point we, besides the color of our skin, we are suffering the same systemic situation here. And so, let's talk about how we can rise above this. The minute that came into play, there needed to be a division and a diversion. And so there was put in place to break that particular movement up, where you would have poor white individuals and slaves. And then they said, well, you know what? At least you are better than the slave. Hence the development of racism. Racism is a Western European thought that has been in existence for 400 years. There has never been, when comparing diversity on the planet prior to that, you had tribalism. And tribes would come together either to acquire resources or to partner with another tribe to develop and to grow. So it was never about a full engaged conquering system, because slavery is not new just to America. Slavery is something that has been in place since the beginning of humanity. And in that process, this type of colonialized slavery that the African who was black in America has experienced is different than any other particular slave system on the planet or in the history of the world, where we were systematically demonized and dehumanized, defined as less than human, so that those who were reaping the benefit off of our sweat equity, at the same time saying that they were the chosen or the Christians, that they believed in their theology, had to figure out how do I bridge this dichotomy if I'm a Christian and everybody's made in the image of God, and these dark-skinned people, we look the same except for our color. I have to demonize them. I have to dehumanize them so that they can no longer see or find themselves within the global universal context of humanity. Henceforth, manumission, right? So now we are less than human, quarter humans. Some said we didn't have a soul, therefore we were like the beasts of the field. So this whole system has been put in place by those who have considered themselves founding fathers, who in their own right, when you look through history, was pretty bloody. They were terrorists. They wiped out a whole indigenous population here in the Western Hemisphere in what we now know as North America. So in doing that, we've had an opportunity to rise and to gain our humanity back. However, it is at a loss and a cause for those who sit in power. So racism is really a distraction when it comes to understanding the haves and the have-nots. At the top, it's green, and they really don't care. They just need to make sure they can stay in power at the top. But they need like you said, a distraction, a diversion, to keep all of us here plotting and pitting and pulling each other down and dehumanizing and killing and murdering one another while they benefit from it at the top. Because poverty is big business on the planet. Poverty is big business on the planet. Debt is big business on the planet. So if I can keep you impoverished and in debt, then I'll own you. I'll own you. And you'll always owe me something. And if I always owe you something, then I can never truly exercise or participate in this free system that we currently have. And so we have to figure out now that the true crust of the earth is coming, because you can never really hide the truth. You can try to cover it up a little bit and make it vague, but when the truth comes out and a revolution begins that's radical, that goes against the that goes against the establishment, right? The establishment doesn't want to, it's like the matrix. It doesn't want to be broken. It doesn't want to change. There's fear in change. So because of that fear, we now live in this climate where there's an expressed, the word I want to use, overcast on revisiting, demonizing this rising population again. And Minister Farrakhan was right when he read Exodus. Whenever Pharaoh, who was in power, is scared of a growing population, he has to figure out a way how to control it. And if it means killing a portion of the population, that segment that could really rise and cause problems, then that's what he's going to do. And we're looking at a different kind of genocide, particularly that we're experiencing. It is that ugly monster that has been on the planet since the beginning of time. And so now that we have given or shed light on the issue, because the issue has always been here, we've just had exposed media and coverage through the technology that's now saying this is really what injustice looks like. And this is what we are really experiencing. While the rest of the planet or the rest of our community had been sleeping, just kind of being told what was happening, it was happening. Now we're engaged in it. You can smell it and see it and touch it and feel it. And you can feel the hurt and the pain. And you can see those that we put in place that say that they're going to protect and serve are really using us and misserving us and really trying to control us, because they understand that like a phoenix from these ashes, somebody is going to rise. And not just one person, but several people are rising, and they're all rising at the same time. And that's problematic, because you got a man that sits in the capital city of the world who doesn't look like them. And he came from an obscure place. He had a white mother, black father, African father. Father moved on, passed away, left as a single mother, raised him. And so now that's problematic. And so because he came from this place where he shouldn't have, he didn't fit the mold, he broke the mold. And so how many more left to break the mold? That's what I think we're dealing with the fear of breaking the mold.
Dr. Z, I think that part of the problem, and I love Brother Dana. I listened to him the other night. I shared and liked what he was saying. he made a very powerful statement, and that just share right in line with what Brother Washington is saying. The reality is that the system is not broken. The system is doing what the system was designed to do. It was never meant to be anything for people with this color. The system was never designed for the sake of causing people of color to ever be equal. There's a white sister, Brother Dana, that is an educator. She's a teacher. I cannot remember her last name. Her first name is Dr. Janet, and I can't remember her last name. And she says, and she shared, she said, I am an educator, but when people are going to school, they are not going to be educated, they are going to be indoctrinated. And they said that anyone who is not a racist, by the time they graduate from high school, the system has failed. Because the system is designed to make people be better Americans based on America's concept of what a good American is. So if America was founded on us not being whole, people that have any color in us, then literally what it is doing is it's trying to make even those who have color, who have some melanin in them, it's trying to make them conform to a system that was never set up to be for their good. I love what Brother Dana said, and I'm really excited about him being here and having a chance to hear you speak, because one of the things he spoke of, and he went back to the concept of what was written in the book of Exodus. And of course the word Exodus means not only to come out, but to come out massively. And when the people that came out of there, people of color, left Exodus, they bankrupt the economy. And when they bankrupt the economy, that was what made the Pharaoh go and try to bring them back, because he realized that the free labor that he had for all of those years, he no longer had. And he wanted to bring them back because he had to pay them back retroactively of everything that they had. Because anytime a people can have inferior tools, inferior environment, inferior conditions, and still do excellent work, that intimidates an oppressor. And so the oppressor did not want to let go of someone that was that intelligent, because the fear is, what will they become if we don't control them? Bringing it to today's time, I'm a little bit older. I was born in 1957. And by being born in 1957, being down in Louisa County, Virginia, and in North Carolina with my parents, I experienced a level of racism that was a little bit different. I remember dancing for coins for people that didn't look like me. I remember being called that word, by people who didn't look like me. And growing up, it didn't matter, because they gave me a shiny 50-cent piece for dancing. And so I grew up in a different time. And so now my son, who is 34, who is involved in everything, reading everything from Minister Louis Farrakhan to the Illuminati to the 5 Percenters. I mean, he is someone that is not conforming to my way of how I was raised, because this is, as you stated, Doctor, it's a different generation. One of the things that Dr. Dana shared, and that we have seen in our history, is that, and it says in Exodus chapter number 1, verse 11 and 12, it says that the more that they oppressed the people of God, the more they multiplied. And it was intimidating that you can oppress people who are in your mind inferior. And we're not going to even go into the history of the building of pyramids and all that kind of stuff. But when you can oppress a people that are inferior in your mind, and yet they still continue to excel. So we create, as Brother Marcus said, a system that tries to break them, whether it is you keep them as slaves for all of these years, you rape their women, you take their children, and here's what you do. You don't give them money, you don't give them ability to take care of their families or their children because you've already taken the children from them. Then when the so-called Emancipation Proclamation takes place, you now set them free and expect them to know how to handle money that you never gave them, and how to take care of children that you never allowed them to raise, and how to be loyal to women that you never let them have, and then you incarcerate them for not doing what the system never gave them the freedom to do in the first place. And so now, the way that they controlled our people then, and I'm going to pass this mic over to my brother in just a second, the way they controlled him, there was a gentleman whose last name was Lynch. And Mr. Lynch came up with the concept, I cannot remember his first name, he was a white gentleman. What was his name?
Willie.
Willie Lynch, thank you so much. I told you I was born in 57. So now, Mr. Lynch came up with a policy or a way of how to control people of color. You would get the biggest, the strongest male. You would bring him out in front of all of the other people that looked like us. You would then break that individual's spirit, but keep his body alive. And you would do that so that if anyone was weaker or lesser, feminine or children, they would see how that individual was treated, and then would say, we better not rise up, because if they broke down Kunta Kinte, then they'll surely break us down. And as a result of doing that, what do you see going on now? You now see our black men, our strong black men, our fathers, our providers, our progenitors. Even if you don't like the fact that they may just be with their lady or may have more than one baby mama, they are the ones that are providing for their home and their families. And so what do? We bring them out, and that is why no one cares that a videotape is rolling. Nobody cares that everybody is paparazzi that owns a phone. Nobody cares. The police can see you videotaping them, and they don't care. I have police officers in our fellowship, and I have heard while I'm talking to some of my police officers and their colleagues that there is already, and Brother Dana can speak to this, there's already an unwritten code that when a police officer comes into a courtroom, it is already the police officer and the judge against whoever is coming into court. It doesn't, and that is why it is crazy for you to think that a public defender who is being paid by the system that is now bringing you in for the purpose of trying to incarcerate you is going to do the best they can to defend you, because they're not getting paid by you. And so we now have this thing going on now where this generation has decided that we're not taking anymore, and I agree with you when you open. They say, why can't we just be peaceful? Why can't we just march? Why can't we do everything like that? We have marched, we've carried signs, we've been peaceful. We've been violent, and we've risen up. It doesn't matter whether we're Martin singing "We Shall Overcome" or whether we're Malcolm saying "By any means necessary." They assassinated both of them. So it doesn't really matter which way you're doing it, because when the oppressor is intimidated, he will keep making you try to come up with ways to appease them. Which is why I cannot understand that every time we have these types of things happen, that happened with these young men just these past couple of weeks, why is it that we have to now have another lesson on knowing how to respond to police officers? Yeah. The police officers are the ones who stop the car. The police officers are the ones who initiate the action. The police officers are the ones who have the weapon. It seems like since they're the ones who are doing all of the initiating, they ought to be learning how to better deal with us instead of us having to try to deal with them because they're having a bad day or having a rough system. There is something that is wrong, and it is wrong from the head down, as Brother Washington said, and it's not going to be settled by us just talking and marching. I have nothing against anyone. I've got somebody, if you, in my family, you shake the tree, I got somebody from everything that will fall out. But I saw everybody rushing down to Orlando when the man went in there and shot at people in the club. I see everybody doing prayer vigils when the police officers get shot. I don't see nobody running to do anything for the young man that was sitting in his car, reaching for what he was requested for, and getting shot 4 or 5 times while his baby is in the back seat. And there is something that is inherently wrong, and it's not going to be solved by singing Kumbaya and we